I reviewed Project Hail Mary not too long ago, and if you're one of the 4 people who watched it, you may recall that my biggest complaint, or actually my only significant complaint, was that Ryland Grace is just a copy-paste of Mark Watney from The Martian. I mean, I liked Watney, so it's not a huge deal, but I thought I'd read that other Andy Weir novel and see how it was. I mean, that book's protagonist is a female Saudi Arabian smuggler who lives on the moon, so she ought to be different from the American male scientist, right? Right? Hi, I'm Lulu, and today I'll be reviewing Artemis by Andy Weir. Just a quick reminder before we get started, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. And I apologize ahead of time, I have a terrible cold, so I sound awful. So if you're like me and you read Artemis hoping Andy Weir could write a different kind of protagonist, well, tough luck, my friend. Like Ryland Grace, Jazz Bashara is just another Mark Watney clone, except with the maturity of a 16-year-old boy. I'm raising one, I would know. Each of Weir's main characters, it seems, has only very slight personality variations. Superficial ones at that. Watney curses a lot, Grace doesn't curse at all. Jazz likes immature sex jokes. Other than that, these 3 protagonists are all the same dude. And after reading Artemis, I suspect that dude is Andy Weir. This has me questioning if Mark Watney ever really was as cleverly written as I initially thought. When I first read The Martian, I really liked Watney's upbeat attitude. I figured Andy Weir made a conscious decision to write a protagonist who's using humor and positivity to get through his hopeless circumstances that he has to struggle through all alone. Yeah, he's got basically the entire population of planet Earth in his corner trying to rescue him, but he's very much isolated all the while. And the humorous way Watney responds to this seemed defiantly chipper, like he's thumbing his nose at the bad hand fate has dealt him. However, I now wonder if I was reading too much into it and maybe Watney's personality was just a happy accident. Like, did Weir just write a self-insert character because it's all he knows and it happened to be the exact right character that that particular story required, but then when he wrote the same self-insert into Artemis, it was the exact wrong character? I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. Watney thinking funny things to himself while he struggles to stay alive works. Jazz making quips to her BFF while an entire city has mere minutes before they all suffocate to death unless the heroes can pull off their cobbled together plan is just moronic. Perhaps Andy Weir's characters are really just all self-inserts, but even he wouldn't actually act like that in this situation. No, I don't know him, but I do know humans, and nobody is like that. Yes, people do use humor to combat stress and bad circumstances. That's why Mark Watney works. That's why I binge-watched Fawlty Towers to cope with my dad's death. But some circumstances just don't allow for humor. With the obvious exception of slapstick comedy, if someone is choking to death, for example, you don't make cute quips to the person trying to perform the Heimlich maneuver. So yeah, Jazz probably is just an Andy Weir self-insert, but not the real Andy Weir, who I presume, like all sane people, would act with due seriousness in a high-stakes life or death situation with a ticking clock. No, I mean, she's a self-insert of the Andy Weir sitting comfortably at his writing desk and chuckling at his own lame jokes. I can't help but suspect that he's one of the many male authors who's been told the rather shallow advice to write women exactly the same way they write men and then just give her boobs and say she's a girl. I'm not saying only men make this mistake. I have certainly read female-authored novels where the male love interest is basically just a hairy woman with a little extra baggage in the undercarriage. But Jazz Bashara certainly falls into the men with breasts category, or teen boy with breasts, really. She'll giggle about how the domes of the Moon City look like boobs. So I don't believe it whenever she's like, oh look, a hot guy. You know I'm definitely into that. Okay, now that that rant's out of the way, I will say there are good aspects of this novel to praise. The world building is actually pretty cool. Artemis is a city on the moon, or really a small town on the moon, like a frontier town cropping up in a barren desert. There's one sheriff in town and everyone knows everyone. My own hometown is kind of like that, except more barren and with even fewer residents. And it's in the woods and not on the moon. And just like Artemis, we also get tourism in our town because we've got a bridge, a big bridge. people like to look at it. Anyway, true to Weir's thorough sciencing, his moon city is very well thought out and feels real. The guy knows what he's talking about when it comes to the technical stuff. The pacing is quick for the most part, and I finished half the book in a plane ride from Albany to Orlando, so hey, even if you don't end up liking this one, it's a fast read. And as I said, I liked the action initially, and it kept me turning the page or tapping the Kindle screen because I had to know how it was all going to pay off. Unfortunately, I just don't think the payoff was anywhere near as satisfying as Weir's other two novels. The Martian and Hail Mary are both tightly written and have protagonists that you can at least sympathize with, even if they are both the same person. I mean, in the end, they're both doing the best they can with the bad hands they've been dealt, so you can't help but root for them. But not only does Artemis have several plot points that go absolutely nowhere, like Jazz's pen pal who could be entirely cut out with no loss to the story, but Jazz herself, while again is the same guy Weir always writes, is far less sympathetic because her misfortunes, with a few exceptions, are self-inflicted through her own bad decisions. This would make you think she would be written far differently from Watney and Grace, but nah. Her quippy, jocular attitude as she makes one selfish decision after another makes her come off as smug. I will be fair, Weir does try to give her a bit of a self-sacrificial redemption arc in the end, but I don't know that it really did it for me. Honestly, it probably would have been better if she died. Not just because she's annoying, but death might have redeemed her in a far more satisfying way. The story seems to want that. The ending almost begs for the self-sacrifice to be real and not a self-sacrifice that she somehow lives through, even though people wouldn't live through that. Oh, was I ranting about the main character again? My bad. I did not like her. Let's refocus and talk about the story, which centers around a heist plot, or a heist plot that leads to another heist plot and betrayals and double-crossing and etc., etc. I was enjoying it initially, but it did wear on me by the end. And it all comes down to our blowtorch-slinging heroine executing some very skilled welding. You read a lot about welding, more than you ever cared to. The ending, as seems to be the case with all of Weir's stories, ties up in a neat little bow. However, with The Martian and Hail Mary, it all made sense and felt right. With Artemis, it was forced and not particularly believable. And this goes beyond her living through an impossible scenario. I mean, if I had almost killed an entire city, even by accident, my butt would definitely be getting thrown into jail forever, or at least deported to my country of origin. But Jazz, according to her friends who constantly remind her of it, is apparently an amazing, beautiful super genius with all the talent in all the whole world, or the whole moon, I guess. So she finagles herself a neat little deal with the moon boss babe where she doesn't get deported or thrown in jail because she's like a moral smuggler. Not one of those mean drug and weapon smugglers, and apparently no other smuggler ever smuggled those things onto the moon and never will for some reason, even though they 100% will in real life. But I guess because Jazz is so good and smart and beautiful, she gets to stay on the moon forever and corner the market on illegal smuggling, or something. I guess no one else will ever break the moon laws and smuggle illegal things, even when the expected sudden population boom arrives. I don't know. The characters all confidently talk like this all makes perfect sense, so I guess I'm supposed to believe it. If she were an intimidating mob boss type with a bunch of cronies, I could almost believe it would be too risky for a competing smuggler to challenge her, but that's not the scenario we're presented with. So with all that said, I don't know how I'm gonna rate this one. I keep changing my mind about how much the good ideas balance out the kind of sucky execution. The concepts and world building are really neat and the pacing is generally good, but the characters, particularly the main character, really dragged it down for me. I'm thinking 4 welding torches out of 10? No, 5. 4. 4.5. But that's just this reader's opinion. Have you read Artemis? What would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? Do you think I'm being too harsh on Andy Weir's character choices? Drop your comments down below. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and ring that notification bell for more content like this in the future, and I'll see you in the next video.